Back here on the Rich Eisen Show, one of our favorite guests because he always spits truth. And his 49ers, by the way, are the only remaining undefeated team in the NFC. On their bye week, they sat back and watched the Rams lose not once but twice. And they take on the Rams next week, but they finish up this week in a Monday Night Football spot, a big game against the Cleveland Browns. Pro Bowler Richard Sherman back here on the Rich Eisen Show. How are you, Richard?
I'm doing great. And yourself?
I'm fine. I'm wondering, do you, when you watch a Thursday night game like last night involving your former team, do you root for the Seahawks sitting there watching it?
Oh, I didn't even watch the game, honestly.
No, really?
No, I try not to watch football in my free time.
Huh? Because I'd imagine it's your next team that you're facing after this one. So you didn't even watch the Thursday night football game?
No, I don't care to watch the TV copy. I get the all 22. After the game, they'll send it to my iPad.
Okay.
I'll take a look at it then.
So free time. So you're hanging with your family is what you're saying instead of watching Thursday night football. You're being daddy, not
Right.
cornerback.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
So were you watching Disney Junior or something instead of Fox last night? Then?
Peppa Pig, I think, was the
Peppa Pig. Yeah, that's right. I'm getting ready for London. Speaking of Peppa Pig, I'm going to be doing that London game next week. So sitting here at 3-0 right now, Richard, is there any feeling that around this team that you have felt before in championship years in your previous spot?
I mean, I don't try to compare it to any team. You know, we're having a good time. We're playing good football. We're enjoying playing with one another. That's always a good feeling. You know, the fact that we're winning games is obviously a plus. Looking forward to this next game and getting another opportunity to go out there and compete.
Okay, and in terms of what you're seeing on film of the Browns, what are you seeing on film of the Browns?
Well, they did a great job of executing their game plan last week against the Ravens. Obviously got Chubb involved. He made a lot of good big plays. Got Landry involved for the most part in his spots, and got very creative with the way they allowed Baker to sling the ball around. So it was looking like they found a good rhythm.
What challenge does Odell present to you, Richard, when you're across from him?
Well, he's a great receiver. He runs crisp routes. He's explosive. Can always go to distance if left with a seam. So you got to make sure you stay adept and stay on him at all times.
Well, I know it's season 9 for you, but do you get a particular competitive edge by facing somebody like Odell?
Well, I mean, every week you face somebody great in this league. Basically a receiver or a great quarterback or a combination of both. So it's obviously going to be a great challenge that you always can appreciate every year and every game, and looking forward to it.
And are you going to wear a watch of some sort?
No. I don't wear a watch. I let the scoreboard keep the time.
No, I understand that, but I mean, I think that might be a way to get in his helmet, Richard. Like you show up, you show up with a watch and flash it to him as he's getting ready to run a route. Don't you think that would be helpful?
Right. That might be the edge they'll need, the winning edge.
I'm just saying. I'm not saying that you need one, but maybe you could take a watch. Maybe if one of your small children has a watch, you could wear one of those and get out there. What do you think of that?
That's part of my game plan. I'm going to think about it. I'm going to see what I can do.
I think, look, I just try to leave people in a better spot than I have found them. Hey, you've been quite vocal, and I'm sure you knew I would bring this up, but you've been very vocal on the Fair Pay to Play Act that the governor of our state of California has signed into law. And you said that if this is the death of the NCAA, then that's a good thing. Why do you feel that way?
Well, because it's a corrupt institution. And they've been taking advantage of these kids for a really long time. They go under the guise of fair play and managing it. And, every week you look up and there's something else going on where kids getting taken advantage of. I mean, they couldn't even let kids get meals for a while there. You know what I mean? When I was in college, it was illegal by NCAA standards for the team to even provide more than one meal a day. Like that doesn't seem like a super advantage. That seems like something that would be reasonably expected from a university is to feed their athletes. And the NCAA is the kind of institution that wouldn't even let them, didn't see fair or fit for universities to be able to feed their athletes until I think I forget who one of the kids in the March Madness tournament was like, I starve every night. I starve most nights. And he had just won a national championship, and it was like, oh, well, this is a bad look publicly, so let us change this dumb rule, this archaic rule. And I think that until people really get inside look at the NCAA and what they do with the money and how much money is made per athlete, per player, per team, then people won't really fully understand the scope of things. People will continue to say, well, the athletes get scholarships. Well, some of these scholarships are worth $10,000, $14,000, $20,000. And these kids are working ridiculous hours, especially in football. They're working ridiculous hours every week and really aren't getting compensated fairly. And it's obviously it's a huge industry in terms of finances. It's a multi-billion-dollar industry, so it's not just going to come down easy. There are people making $10, $15 million a year, easy money off the backs of these kids. They're not going to let that stop.
Well, and in terms of your situation in college, Richard, I mean, in terms of juggling big-time athletics and big-time academics, I mean, Stanford has to be one of the most difficult to actually navigate. Would you have had time to do other things, to be paid, to get paying gigs on the side, Richard?
No, but I think, honestly, I didn't have time to do anything because your schedule is depending on time of year, whether it's winter or in season or spring ball. You got time to wake up. And if you're in the winter, you got winter condition at 6 a.m. That starts at 6 a.m. So you have to wake up at 5:30, get there, get dressed, be to practice at 6. That'll probably end at 7:30. You have class at 8:15, 8:30. You're in class. You're doing your thing. So you probably have meetings at 2 o'clock. So you can't have any classes from 2 to probably 4 or 5 o'clock, which is impossible in college, but that's a requirement. So, you don't have time to really do anything because your schedule is always filled with football or workouts or lift or, they keep you busy. So, but I think the big thing that'll change is that the NCAA won't be able to use your likeness. They profited for a long time just putting Ezekiel Elliott or whoever the star player is, Kyler Murray or whoever the guy is for that year on the cover of magazines, on the cover of tickets, on the sides of stadiums, putting them in commercials to sell games and things like that. And I think that will change fundamentally when they have to pay these kids to do that. Well, now you can show the universities, but you can't show the kids.
Well, Richard Sherman here on the Rich Eisen Show. I'm with you lockstep with this whole thing. But I do want to play devil's advocate, if you will, while I have you on the phone line. The other argument that one is hearing about this is that the competitive imbalance would be thrown off. For instance, let's say Stanford, where you have been on record where it's not as intense of a football environment as, say, the SEC. How in the world could Stanford stay competitive, if you will, if there's a school that's giving $1 million through a car dealership to come and play at the university? How can that?
I would, if we're going to be specific, I would argue that Stanford and Alabama goes for two different styles of kids and recruits two different styles of kids. I'd say there are very few times that Stanford and Alabama are recruiting the same kind of kid and the same exact athlete. So I think that in itself would never play out. Now, if you said USC and Alabama are fighting for kids, then guess what? One of those universities will get the kid. And you could say that all you want, but every week you look at these coaches in commercials, these college coaches, these amateur coaches of these universities sitting in commercials, getting $1 million deals, getting $1 million car deals, and I don't see anybody saying anything about a competitive advantage. So I find it odd that you say that there's a competitive advantage when these student athletes are involved, but never when the coaches are involved. And that's what's odd about this whole thing. Like, half the time they say, oh, it's amateur, but when you involve coaches who are ex-NFL coaches sometimes, then all of a sudden, hey, the coaches are professionals, so they get to do endorsement deals. They get to get side deals with car dealerships or commercials or any kind of endorsement deals they want. But when you go to the kids that they coach, the kids are amateur.
Couple more minutes left here with Richard Sherman, 49ers cornerback, right here on the Rich Eisen Show. So when it all comes down to it, I know you've got a professional job to do. How do you see this all playing out? I mean, the NCAA has taken one side, and California's done its law, and there's other states that are going to be probably doing the same thing. There's one in Anthony Gonzalez, former Ohio State wide receiver, is a congressman who's beginning to fashion federal law on this. How do you think this all winds up with Richard?
Well, I don't think the NCAA, like I said, is a billion-dollar industry, and when you have money, you have power. So they'll have political pacts in place to try to protect themselves and try to fight this legislation. But I don't think that the NCAA is in law. The NCAA isn't the federal government. It's an institution. It's a private institution or nonprofit or whatever the case may be. So I think that if this law passes in California, other states will be lockstep, and it will either destroy the NCAA. And if it destroys the NCAA, then another organization will come in and manage college football in a more reasonable way and allow things that should have been allowed. You're kicking kids out for having YouTube channels and suspending kids for doing things that regular students are able to do, and you're ending these kids' college careers, when they're not doing anything out of the ordinary. They're not doing anything extra. This kid is filming videos of him kicking a football, and now he can't play college football because he's monetizing something that is a talent of his that's outside of this game. And I think that once all is said and done, either the NCAA will fold or they will change their ways substantially and become the institution that they should have been in the first place. And even the president today said, well, maybe we should have changed 10 years ago, but hey, we weren't in a position to change. Like you've been in a position to change forever, but when you don't have to change, you don't.
Last thing for you, Richard, what's the status of the CBA conversations? Have they been tabled between the Players Association and the NFL for the season? Where does that stand right now?
Yeah, they've been tabled for the season, so we'll resume them probably sometime in the off season once everybody's done. There are a few discussions between Dee and Eric and Roger, but for the two executive committees getting together, it won't be happening anytime soon.
Okay, it'll happen after the 49ers bring another Lombardi Trophy back to Northern California. Is that what you're saying?
Right,
Richard?
that's the plan.
Okay. Just want to make sure. I'm going to write that down. Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm a little salty. J.J. Watt sent me this mug with his face on it because Michigan got destroyed by Wisconsin, and it's a tough one for me to take, Richard. But I'm going to take it like a man.
Yeah, I can respect that. Respect that.
Take care, Richard. Thanks for the time as always. Truly enjoy our chats.
Thank you. I always enjoy it.
Thank you. Right back at you. R. Sherman _25.
For more of The Rich Eisen Show, tune to Audience Channel 239 on DirecTV for free on BR Live or download the Rich Eisen Show app.